My name is Jenny Pearson. After 14 years of addiction, I got sober at Longbranch Recovery.
Jenny, tell me a little bit about what addiction was like for you. How did it start and how did it progress?
Addiction for me was a really dark and lonely, terrifying place to be. It's like a bad relationship I couldn't get out of. So my addiction started, I think the first time I drank alcohol alcoholically. I drank until I couldn't stop, until my body made me stop. I was 16. But my addiction really picked up in my early 30s. I got exposed to opioids through getting sick a lot. I got bronchitis 7 times when I was pregnant with my second child. And my doctor kept putting me on this opioid cough syrup. And the one thing I remembered about that was that it made me feel nothing. It made me feel really numb, and I liked that. I wasn't in a very happy place in my marriage. I was, a young mom with 2 young kids. My husband traveled all the time. We lived somewhere that I wasn't from. I was lonely, and that made me feel nothing. And so then after my child was born healthy, I remembered that feeling, and for the first time ever, took that medication without needing it medically. Now, I didn't even know what addiction was, really. I never smoked marijuana. I had this really traditional, very hallmarky type upbringing. I didn't have big trauma, and I thought that was, something that coincided with addiction. You had to have all these other things, and turns out that's not the case. Yeah, so I kind of learned, that you could be an addict without a bunch of trauma in your background. So I found myself at 30 years old, dependent on opioids, doctor shopping every day to get this prescription opioid cough syrup. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to tell anybody. I didn't know how to ask for help. I had a lot of shame and guilt about it. And, it was a really deep, dark secret. And kind of as things do, they have a way of coming out when you have a big secret. So everything kind of blew up in 2005. And so I decided to seek help. I went to a detox program, and I stayed abstinent from drugs and alcohol for 8 years. But then in 2012, I had to have a surgery, and, I needed pain meds, and I had a plan with my surgeon. And then I needed a second surgery. And that doctor, we had a plan. And then I needed a third one. And I didn't tell that surgeon about my history because I liked the meds. I liked what they did for me. I started drinking wine again around that same time. And yes, both alcohol and opioids. So I ended up in about a 3-year period having 12 or 13 surgeries, a lot of them unnecessary, to get pain meds. The prescription monitoring program really threw me off. The doctors could see what I was doing. I went to pain doctors. I could never make my prescription last. I ran out. I started stealing meds from friends and family. Go to their house, use the restroom, and take all their pain pills in their cabinet and replace them with whatever. Just doing things. The progression of addiction for me looked like doing things that went against my values. Acting in a way that I would have never behaved if I was sober. Acting outside of myself, and there was so much shame and guilt, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And so every now and then my husband would figure out what was going on, and I would cold turkey detox myself at home, and but it wasn't long before that same little voice in the back of my head. You need that, you need that. So that I would go right back to it. I was really able to keep it very secret. I mean, I was super functional. I got a master's degree during addiction. I had dinner on the table. My kids were clothed and fed, and everything looked really good. And I kind of thought if things looked good, they were good. The way that I felt on the inside did not match what was going on the outside. It was not congruent at all with my behavior and my words and my actions. So addiction, progressed from me taking pills as prescribed to needing 40 to 50 pills a day to not get sick, to having one glass of wine or two while cooking dinner, to drinking 3 bottles of wine a day. Hiding it all, in a Yeti on my bedside table. Couldn't get through the night without drinking because I would get sick if I didn't. I would start throwing up, go into withdrawal. At the very last part of my addiction, I started getting the very same opioid cough medicine that I started with in the early 2000s from my veterinarian. It's the same medicine, human form, you fill it at Walgreens. I mean, exactly the same. And so that was really easy to do. So the next day I went to another veterinarian and got more. And before I knew it, I had like 30-something veterinarians prescribing me enormous amounts of this drug for my one weenie dog, who was 17. And I did that for about 7 or 8 months. I needed a refill for every day of the week, every day of the month, because I would get so sick without it. I didn't know how to get a drug dealer. So turns out all that I was doing with those veterinarians, I would go to one and I would change my dog's name, call him something different at every one. Kept it all in my notes on my phone. It was very, very organized. It's doctor shopping. And they had been watching me. Apparently, a pharmacist thought something was suspicious and called the pharmacy board, who then called the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. And, they launched an investigation. I was lucky enough that they left me in treatment with the agreement that I would turn myself into jail the day I left. So I left on a Sunday, July 7th, 2019. And on July 8th, 2019, I went to the Sheriff's Department with my lawyer and I met with the detectives. And I was very, very open and honest about what I had been doing and what addiction looked like for me. I think they thought I was dealing drugs because I was getting such enormous amounts. But the conversation changed a little when they became aware it was like a personal use thing for me. Yeah. It was a lot. It's astounding that I'm still here. I would say I just moved here from Shreveport and that my vet closed and I didn't have any records, but that this was what. And I didn't look the part, right? I looked like a mom with, a designer bag and dressed well. And so, I think some of them suspected. And so I went to more than 30-something vets. And if they wouldn't prescribe to me, I would just go to another one. It was a continual job. It was a full-time job. Being addicted to drugs. It was a full-time job for me. And, I didn't care about the consequences because I was so focused on getting what I needed. I didn't care about what I was doing to my family. I didn't care about, what I was doing to my kids. The only relationship in my life that I gave time and attention to was my relationship with drugs and alcohol. I think that I wasn't present for my kids. I stole all their money. all their college savings. Veterinarians are expensive. And so I stole from them, you know. I completely fractured the trust they had in me as their mom. There wasn't like one big tipping point of like my family intervening or, you know, was hiding things so well. But I was driving down the interstate one day and I had this really vivid vision of my 16-year-old finding me overdosed. And his dad travels a lot for work. And so my husband being out of town and him being alone in the house with my body and his dad being gone. And I thought, that can't be the legacy I leave to my son. I couldn't have imagined it would be this way. It is so fulfilling. I have, you know, emotional intimacy with my family, with my kids and my husband. I've been able to make financial amends to people, my children specifically. You know, I've made living amends to all the people that I love. I have been able to rebuild trust with my family, with my kids, with my husband. My marriage has never been better. I've been married 25 years and I've been sober almost 5 years. And the last 5 years have been more fulfilling, more emotionally intimate, more exciting, just more than I could have ever dreamed that it would be. Life has become, I'm so content. I have inner peace. I don't obsess about drugs and alcohol the way I used to. And I thought when I got sober that I would just put drugs and alcohol aside, but that I would still think about them and want to use them every day. And that could not be further from the truth. And I couldn't have imagined. But the steps of AA have shown me a way. The work I did in treatment helped me develop a relationship with myself that I didn't have. I learned to love myself the way I am. And I didn't have that before. I went to Longbranch Recovery in Abita Springs, Louisiana. You know, it's funny, they weren't expecting me. That day that I was driving and had that really intense vision, I drove there and rang the doorbell. Most people go to treatment with like an appointment. Like they know they're coming, they have everything ready for them. But I rang the doorbell and the nurse answered the door and I said, I think I'm gonna die, can somebody help me? So they took me in this little room and this man, and he kind of did a little assessment with me. And I said, here's the deal. I was manipulative till the very last moment. My husband doesn't know what I'm doing. My parents don't know what I'm doing. I've ruined us financially for like the third time. And I need to stay here for 90 days. Like, I know I can't be done in 30. And my parents can pay for this, but I need you to call them and ask them to and tell them I'm here. And I need you to tell my husband that I'm here because I can't. I didn't have a voice at the time. I couldn't fight for myself. You know, I thought I was dying and I didn't really care. And so I think that the fact that Longbranch did that for me saved my life. And I got really willing that day to do things differently.
Was there somebody in a specific person in treatment that made an impact in your life?
Oh gosh, several, right? Emily was my counselor. She walked through a really hard journey with me. My 30th day in treatment, I found out that there was a SWAT team that came to my house, and they came in at 6 a.m. with their guns drawn and a battering ram, and I had 26 felony counts of prescription fraud against me. And Emily walked through that with me. There was an RA, Tiffany, who she sat with me every night the first 2 weeks. And I was detoxing and terrified and wanted to leave, but not really. I didn't really want to leave, but I just was so undone about where I was and what I had done. And she sat with me and she said, I've been here too, and you're not. All of the counselors, my gosh, they worked so hard with us to expose us to things we needed to work on to help us meet our goals, our treatment team, our treatment plan. All of this, the work that they put into me was really unbelievable. I couldn't believe that someone would take the time to help me grow in a way that would benefit everybody in my life. The 12-step immersion program at Longbranch taught me how to use AA. Like, not only what all the steps meant, and it taught me how to apply it to my life in a way that I still do daily.
What would you say to someone who's struggling but is scared to get help?
I know it's terrifying. It's the scariest thing you'll ever do, maybe. Giving up the relationship that you have with drugs and alcohol. It's like grief. It's grieving, like when you lose somebody. But there's so much hope on the other side. There is so much goodness and community, connection on the other side. I wasn't connected to anybody when I was using, but now I can connect in an honest and meaningful way with people that I care about. Connection is like the opposite of addiction, they say. You have to get rid of the substances to find that connection, and the way to do it. Call me, I'll help you. I'll walk with you the whole time. You're not alone.